Then in the 1980s, something changed. Something that had been a successful action for hundreds of years changed in 1980. And in 1980, the companies started shifting from pensions where you work there, you got a check every month for the rest of your life when you retired. They shifted. The company used to have the shoulder the burden of providing that benefit. In 1980, something changed. And what changed was companies started shifting that responsibility from themselves onto the employees. And they created something called a 401k retirement plan. Now, the 401k itself was not really designed for retirement. It was basically a tax loophole. In fact, most people don't know what the 401k actually means. What do those symbols actually mean? The 401k is a tax code. It's Internal Revenue Code, subsection 401k. And basically, that just talks about how people could defer taxes. So executives in companies, when they got their bonuses, they didn't want to pay taxes on the bonus each year when they got it. They would shield it into putting some of that money into a 401k account, and they would just let it sit there. At some point in the future when they retired, then it would take the money out and pay the taxes on it then. So that's what it was for, is for executive bonuses. It was this kind of obscure thing, obscure way that executives were trying to shield some of their bonuses from taxes. And then in 1980, because companies wanted to shift away from pensions, they just said, well, let's just give it to everybody. Let's just expand it to everybody without really stress testing it, without really doing any kind of really beta testing for retirement.
You were the test.
You're the test, baby. So I'm going to share some concepts about this so you really, really understand the impact that had. It's not just something happened in 1980. The way people retired or were unable to retire fundamentally shifted when that occurred. So I'm going to share with you this part here. Used to be hello, goodbye tension, hello pension, happy retirement. So everybody used to get a pension. It used to be such a common thing, but now it's not so common anymore. And then a few years ago, Time Magazine came out with this article, why it's time to retire the 401k and what you can do instead. And this article was filled with stories about just horror stories that people had encountered with their retirement accounts. People who were in that position where they were in the shift from switching from pensions to 401ks. And they talked about that and they shared their stories and why they thought it was time to move from a system that wasn't fundamentally working for people. People's retirement success has gone down by their own admissions. They felt like other generations retired better, had more security than they do. And so throughout, the responsibility fell onto their shoulders, and they never learned financial education. Most people didn't learn how to invest properly. So they started facing planning for their retirement with almost no education about how to do this. Whereas before, the pension was managed by professionals, and that was their only job was to manage the pension fund. And that's what they did. But now you have to work your job and try to manage your retirement and do all the things you have to do. So that became the things that people fell into, was that. Now, in this article, I'll read a couple of things from this article. It talks about this guy who worked for this company, Occidental Petroleum Corporation, cut his pension in favor of a 401k system. So instead of getting a guaranteed pension check of $1,308 a month for his 36 years there, he would only receive $225 and plus $180 a month from a profit sharing plan.
Wow.
He had $70,000 left in his 401k, but it wasn't enough. So by cutting his pension, they actually ended up reducing the amount of income this guy was going to take. And it says here, this isn't how retirement was supposed to be. That's not how it was supposed to be. So this goes and talks about this. And it says, at this time this article came out, the 401k was only 30 years old. Imagine that. At the time this article came out, it was only 30 years old. Most people getting ready for retirement today are older than the 401k. It's a little older than that now. But it says here, invented nearly 30 years ago at the time of this article, as an executive perk, one more way to dodge Uncle Sam, the 401k was never meant to replace the employer guaranteed pension fund. It was never meant to be retirement account, right? It was never meant to do that. However, that was a way for companies to shift their responsibility to employees.